The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host, guest, random reptoid, or chupacabra may not necessarily reflect those of AM 950 Radio, its affiliates, or its sponsors. Now, it's time to step into the unknown. There are things people experience but never talk about. A shadow moving in the corner, flickering of the lights, a disembodied voice. We invite you to talk with us. Share your story, share your experience, because this isn't just your story. This is our story. This is Ghostbox Radio with Greg Bakken.
And this is Ghostbox Radio on AM 950, where every night we talk about the paranormal, ufology, Bigfoot, and so much more. My name is Greg Bakken, and thank you very much for joining us in the Twin Cities here, joining us on a very rainy Thursday evening. My goodness, it's of almost a biblical proportion, the rain, and makes the drive a little crappy. I'm not going to lie, and I keep thinking to myself too that this is not great, but we're just weeks away, aren't we, from snow, blizzards, bad driving, bad people driving, which is me, and just getting off the roads and stuff like that. I mean, I'm not trying to be the forebearer of doom over here or anything, but my goodness, it's not working. It's a frightening time. I actually get a lot of anxiety driving in the winter. It's not my favorite thing to do at all. And I know that that's probably the case for most of you out there, but there are some, aren't there, that they thrive on it. They're fine with it. They're able to drive just fine when it's snow all over the place. I am the exact opposite. I mean, I might as well, if I get into a car when it's like blizzard out, I might as well just take a sledgehammer and smash your car, because that's where we're headed. And that's something that I cannot handle it at all. Hopefully I'm moving my operations to my house here so I can don't have to come in on such inclement nights of weather, but we'll see what happens, right? It's funny because I'm complaining about that, but my guest tonight is from a very opposite area of that sort of climate, and I'm very jealous of her at the moment. C.L. Thomas travels widely every year as a fine arts photographer and writer, exploring various afterlife research, OBEs, metaphysics, folklore, and paranormal events and groups. She is an author of the novel Speaking in Shadows, and hosts Small Town Tales podcast. She has written many articles and maintains a blog on legends, folklore, magic, and paranormal stories. Currently, she resides in Las Vegas, Nevada. You know what I mean, folks, with her beloved golden retriever and Maine Coon cat, C.L. Thomas. Welcome to Ghostbox Radio.
Greg, thank you for having me.
Oh, my
goodness.
Honored. My pleasure. And, first of all, there's so many things I want to talk to you about that has nothing to do with paranormal. First of all, that big globe, that sphere that's in Las Vegas. What is that about? Oh, my gosh.
I am totally obsessed with that thing.
I am too.
For the longest time, they put it up. It started going probably in July, and it was just stagnant graphics on it. They weren't that great. But then as it progressed, it was better graphics. They had this big eyeball kind of overlooking the strip and all kinds of neat things. Well, now it moves. I swear, Greg, I almost wrecked my car when I saw the little thing moving.
I thought the same thing when I saw it's like, how many people are going to die because of this thing? And the truth is, I mean, because I see it has like it when it's like the globe is yellow and has a little face on it, it's sleeping, and then it wakes up. And then I saw pictures of the U2 concert that's happening inside there, which makes everything look infinite. And I'm already kind of like, it's like I don't have vertigo, but I started to get it when I was looking at it. I mean, but at the same time, I can't take my eyes off of it. I don't know. That's pretty cool. I love it.
It's definitely it's the best thing going on Vegas right now. I have to admit. I just everybody's talking about it, and just the fact that you two have moved in as residents is something too.
That's crazy.
That's
crazy. Yeah.
Just a few days ago, they had an impromptu concert down on Fremont Street. They just decided to join up and had an outdoor concert down there for the people in Fremont.
Wow.
The drunk people.
For the drunk people, well, you know what? I mean, they're drunk probably anyway themselves. I remember hearing the story when they did some voiceover for an episode of The Simpsons that they brought their own bar with them. This like
Yeah.
little, so I mean, and nothing wrong with it. I mean, I enjoy a drink now and again. So I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm just saying that I guess I'm saying I wish I was you too. I don't know. I don't know. There's no bar here. I know that much right now. The other thing too is that you have a Maine Coon, which
Yes.
are beautiful. I used to think I had a Maine Coon. It's silly to say that way because it turns out that I thought I had two Maine Coons in my life. One named Dave, the other is my current cat Linus, but they turned out to be ragdolls. So they're not Maine Coons, I guess.
Loki is definitely a Maine Coon. He's my dog actually adopted this cat, brought it in as a little kitten. She was carrying it around the yard for probably a few days before I realized this cat was in trouble, and took it in, did the bottle feed thing for the first few days of its life. And yeah, he's a sweet cat. There's just nothing like a Maine Coon. It's a first.
No, they're huge, they're lovable, and I'd say the same for ragdolls, and I think that's why I got confused. Except ragdolls don't look like Maine Coons tend to look like lions, don't they?
Yeah.
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 And like Linus doesn't look like a lion. He just wants to hurt me, and that's. But we'll talk about that some other time. So before we get into it, Ernie Pack had said regarding my plight, move to Kentucky. We get very little of that crap, but if I move to Kentucky, Ernie, I replace one crap with other crap, if you get my drift. That crap, of course, being Ernie himself. So we got that out of the way. We got the pleasantries out of the way. Now, you have a lot of stuff going on. You have a lot of good things happening paranormal-wise. But the one thing that we wanted to talk about, at least to start with, is your new book that is not actually published yet, right? Dancing with Demons.
Yeah, it's something I'm having a hard time with an upload, and then I was waiting on a forward from Dave Schrader, but I have all the pieces.
You'll be waiting forever for that. No, I'm just kidding. I don't.
Dave is a great guy. He's very charismatic. I got the piece this morning. It's great, and now I'm just I'm working with a graphic designer to get it to fit into the confines for print, but it should be live by Sunday.
That's fantastic. So when it's available, how do people get it then?
So they'll be able to get it through my website. Those will be signed copies, but you can download it on Amazon. It'll be available on Barnes and Noble as well.
How nice. How nice. So are they like print on demand then, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Very cool. Very nice. So what's the book about? Dancing with Demons.
It's very, it's kind of a complicated topic, to be honest with you. It's a little bit of my own biography. First of all, I've been seeing ghosts since I was like age 2. So there's a little bit of that in there, as well as a little bit of my family background and the things that happened. And I talk about kind of how I kind of developed, I guess, the ability to see ghosts and mediumship side of things. But it didn't really come to light for me until I moved into a haunted house in Nashville. So it's about that experience. I was never afraid of the paranormal until I lived in this house, and it kind of woken everything up and tossed everything I believed about the paranormal upside down.
So you had been seeing stuff, it's been a part of your life, but then this took you in a different direction that doesn't sound great.
Yes, that's correct.
Wow. I mean, I know that the purpose is for people to buy the book, but can you give us any sort of like maybe hints or anything of what was happening in Nashville that really turned all this on its head for you?
Yes, that could take up an entire show.
Well, how about a couple? You know, if that works.
Yeah, absolutely. So I moved into this house with a boyfriend at the time, and just within a very short time, he started to act very, very differently. He became very violent, very angry all the time. I just never seen that side of him before. He was in school to be a physician, so very smart, intelligent guy, had everything going for him. He completely flipped. So he got a little bit violent. I asked him to move out, and I had my best friend move in with me. And I don't know, things kind of took a turn. It started with small things. It's kind of the only way I could describe it is if you've ever seen a tornado come in, it starts out small. It's like maybe a little bit of wind, some rain. It kind of builds and builds. And then the big storm happens. It only happens for a couple seconds and then it's all over, but everything's destroyed. That's kind of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So it started with like tapping noises. Then it became audible noises, shuffling in the room, that sort of thing. We would see shadows, and it just kept growing and growing to the point where the activity got very violent. It was throwing things around. I got scratched. A gym bag was picked up and thrown across the room. Just different things like that. It was very different, almost like a demonic.
I was going to say, it sounds very like, like a couple of the stages of, demonic, and I don't want to say possession, because I know that's not the case for you. Maybe I'm wrong. But I mean, it's the idea of like the oppression, which I mean, it always starts with like the scratching and smaller sounds and stuff. Were you aware of this being a possibility at the time, or were you thinking it's something else completely different?
I thought, I didn't really know what to think at the time. I knew it was paranormal. I didn't know I didn't know there was a dark side to the paranormal. Aside, people on TV, of course, they always scream and run out of buildings and everything's demonic, but this was a little different.
I suppose too, if you grew up in the situation where you're seeing spirits, they're fine with you. There's no reason to think otherwise. I mean, I guess, it's an interesting thought of what happens when you think that something's always going to act a certain way, but then you get surprised because you're not aware that it can be like this, I suppose.
Exactly. And that's very much what the book is about. You hear a lot of mediums talk about growing up, seeing ghosts for the first time, and realizing that they have those kind of abilities. The first thing they always say is they were afraid when they were growing up. It was a nightmare for them. Or they didn't know where to turn. Different things, different stories, but they all relate to the same thing. They were fearful. I didn't have that. My experiences were very different with the paranormal growing up. It was always more of a comforting spirit around me.
That's interesting. Were they protective, do you think?
Yes, absolutely. And there's some stories in the book. I don't want to go into too much detail on radio, but I didn't have the greatest childhood. Okay. And so when certain things happened, there was a entity that would show up in the room and kind of block the doorway as if he was blocking whatever could come in and harm me or whatever. Sure. Not that anybody was going to come in and harm me, but there was a lot of screaming and yelling in the house, and a lot of different things were going on.
So the idea was that you had a protector.
Yes.
Regardless of whatever level that was needed, that was there for. Do you know who that protector was? I mean, in terms of like, was it someone related to you? Do you know if it was a man, a woman, or any ideas about this spirit?
Yes, it was. He presented himself as an older male with a big white beard. And I was old enough to watch the show Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Have you ever seen that movie, the play one with he looked just like that Santa figure in there. So I called him Santa. What's interesting now, though, looking back, of course, I didn't know this as a kid, but Santa is a very protective spirit for children. If you look at the folklore around Christmas. Mm-hmm. So just making those kind of connections. I did talk to my mother about this figure, and she said that I would talk about him a lot as a young child. When we moved, he kind of went away. But she was able to find out that we did have an older neighbor who passed away just years before we moved into the house. So, and there was other things that happened as a child. My great-grandmother was in my room, and I was able to describe her. I had it was a little girl entity that would come around a lot.
Mhm.
We don't know if this was a real child or not. It was never verified, but just different things like that throughout my childhood.
That's fantastic. That's really cool. Why don't we do this? So before we get into any other big conversations here, why don't we go ahead? Let's take our first break. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with C.L. Thomas. There's so much to talk about. We have her book, Dancing with Demons, that we could talk about, plus her interest in folklore, her podcast, so much more. You're listening to Ghostbox Radio on AM 950.
Need a stone to change your luck or break a curse? Try Larvikite, known for its hex-breaking powers. Need an herb to repel negative spirits? Try Rue, used to repel demons and jinn. Want to create a decoy so black magic can't touch you? Make a witch bottle. For more magical advice, visit Magus Books in Minneapolis. We've got the tools and the expert advice you need to succeed against the dark arts. Find us at 1848 Central Avenue Northeast in Minneapolis or at magusbooks.com.
Reach your highest level of consciousness and well-being with metamorphosisconnections.com. Metamorphosisconnections.com is an online directory of the best holistic and metaphysical practitioners to help you make your most informed choices. You can search metamorphosisconnections.com for classes, events, wellness and life coaches, plus metaphysical products and shops. You can also search for a wide array of healers from all modalities, including EFT, sound healing, energy healing, light therapy, ancestral healing, shamanic healing, reflexology, past life regressions, hypnotherapy, yoga, and more. And if you're not sure where to start, the search feature on metamorphosisconnections.com is tailored to help both those who know what they are looking for and those who are just starting. Come explore the possibilities for your higher self by visiting metamorphosisconnections.com. Their experienced practitioners can guide both beginners and those that are already on their spiritual journey. That's metamorphosisconnection.com, your link to direct you on your spiritual transformation.
The Tilted Tiki, located in downtown Stillwater, helps you get your tropical tiki vibe on with a large selection of fantastic tasting tiki cocktails served in unique and fun glasses, a menu of delicious food ranging from small bites, craft tacos, sandwiches, and more. Plus, don't forget they have live music Wednesday through Saturday nights. Located in downtown Stillwater, the Tilted Tiki is your tropical relaxation restaurant in Minnesota. Visit thetiltedtiki.com. Greg Bakken here. I've told you about the out-of-the-world roast beef sandwiches at Maverick's Real Roast Beef, but I haven't told you about their Philly steak sandwiches, turkey bacon avocado sandwich, BLT, crispy chicken, fish sandwiches, brisket, or pulled pork. Okay, you get the idea. They make a lot of delicious food to the same standard as their famous roast beef sandwiches, and now I'm starving. I'm going to go to Maverick's Real Roast Beef off Lexington and Roseville, and you need to go too. Check out their menu at mavericksbeef.com. Have you ever met someone who not only can help you on a deep spiritual level, but also potentially change your life? Refined Divine is an extremely gifted psychic medium who travels the nation and lives right here in the Midwest. And she offers mediumship, mentorship, house and business parties, energy healing, palm readings, and so much more. Refined Divine has helped thousands, and she can help you.
Hi, this is Psychic Medium Deb. I cannot wait to hear from you. You can go to refineddivinepsychic.com.
And I hope to see some of you out in Bayport, Minnesota this Saturday at the American Legion 491. We're talking about Witchy Weekend on the St. Croix, a wonderful event that is happening this Saturday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. You can get tickets at Eventbrite. Look up Witchy Weekend on the St. Croix. I'm going to be speaking there at 5 p.m. I'm also going to have a table there all day if you want to stop by and say hi. Also, Jody, who you just heard on the commercial, she is going to be there. Actually, she starts off the day. I think at least one of her sessions is completely sold out. Not a surprise. She's amazing. But definitely come out and see us this Saturday once again over at Witchy Weekend on the St. Croix at the American Legion 491 in Bayport, Minnesota. That's from 10 a.m. till 6 p.m. But I have with me right now, I have C.L. Thomas. She's the author of the upcoming book, Dancing with Demons, A Paranormal Encounter. The book should be available this weekend. C.L. Thomas, once you have the book ready to go, can you please let me know, and I'll put it out on my social media platforms as well, just so that people who are interested are able to do so. But is there a way that you like them to follow you on social media?
There is. I'm very active on Instagram and sometimes on Facebook, not all the time.
Sure.
Mainly on Instagram, though. If they want to find me, I have the code somewhere on the screen. You can scan it or just look for author_CL_Thomas. And
Okay.
it should come up.
Fantastic. We've been talking about your new book. We're talking about your past, where it feeds into this book, talking a little bit about the house in Nashville. And you had also mentioned that you had these protections of spirits before you moved to Nashville. Did you have any sign of those spirits helping protect you when you're in Nashville?
I was more, let me back up just a little bit.
Sure.
When I was in school, I was not focused on the paranormal. I kind of put it away and forgot about it.
Mm-hmm.
So when all this stuff started happening in Nashville again, it kind of stirred everything up and kind of woke me up again. Does that make sense? So I wasn't really paying attention to any spirits around me at all.
Sure.
And I was also experiencing a lot of, I was kind of blaming myself for a lot of the stuff that happened in childhood. I was trying to get through school so I can better myself in some way. So I had a lot going on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please continue.
When stuff started going on in Nashville, the intensity of it and just the things that happened, it kind of captured me in a obsession kind of way almost. So it drew me in like that, but the paranormal was so different, to getting scratched and being scared all the time. It got to the point where I couldn't even sleep with the lights out at all. So it's just different.
Did you talk about obsession? You've talked about oppression. You are, and I know that Father Kenneth Torres, demonologist. To this day, and I think you answered the first segment. I apologize. I'm going to ask again. Do you think that situation was demons?
I think so. But on the flip side of it, I want people to understand too that you have a choice to pay attention to this stuff and to draw it in. So, and that's why I wrote the book. It's more about taking your power back and to realizing that you do have a choice in life if you're going to pay attention and be dominated by a spirit.
And that's just it. I guess the thing that is kind of frightening for me when I see so many of the programs out there now, and I don't know if you watch any of them or not. I really don't, but I still feel like every time I tune in that they're all talking about it, and they put an unrealistic light to it, and it frightens me because I don't think people really understand the power that can happen in situations like yours, for example.
Right. I think too, like you said, the TV shows in Hollywood are kind of dictating how the paranormal is looked at and kind of steering the direction of the paranormal pulp culture. And one of those things in Hollywood that everyone is looking for with demonic cases, well, first of all, they're saying that, every show is demonic, right?
Yeah.
In some of these shows. But now the culture is kind of turning because it's becoming dispopular to say that something is demonic. And so what they're saying is, well, I've been a demonologist and self-proclaimed demonologist, that is. I've done so many cases and I've only come across maybe one that could be demonic. You get this, it's so rare kind of thing.
Yeah.
But is it really? Or are we looking at it differently? Because in Hollywood, what we look for is head spinning, people spitting up nails, beds levitating. That's what we're looking at in Hollywood, right?
Yep.
In front of these TV shows. Well, what about suicide? What about years of addiction? All of that can be a demonic force if you really look at it. If an enemy is going to attack you of any form or a negative entity, how are they going to attack you? they're going to go for your weakest point, right?
Yep. Yep. And if your weakest point is alcohol or drugs of any kind or whatever else, I mean, it could help feed you.
Right. Exactly. Now, I want to make it clear, though, that I'm not saying that, addiction and everything could be all demonic.
Right.
That's not what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's probably wise that you say so, because you're going to get someone who's going to be like,
yeah,
Gail Thomas says that every addiction is demonic possession. But, and this is what I was trying to get at, I guess, a little bit too, because I feel like, and maybe you'll disagree, I feel like that we're making each other's points a little bit here, because, I'm just thinking about the Nashville house. You're talking about, the four, what demonologists look at as the four characteristics of demonic possession. And I'm not saying you're possessed, but it felt like that things were getting there, right? And it kind of goes to your conversation about it's not going to be overt all the time. You got infestation, you have oppression, you have obsession, they're words that you've actually used, and then you finally end up with possession. And you think about too, like, there's a lot of people who are going to be like, well, it's also one of the things that, like, they look at before providing any sort of exorcism is somebody's mental stability, their mental state. But to your point, and I think that it's something that is worth discussing, is that perhaps someone's mind gets to a certain point because of those influences as well.
Exactly. And I do have a case that I won't disclose the name or anything. It's a case I was on last year in California, and it was in a almond orchard. It's a beautiful house in the middle of an almond orchard, and this lady grew up in the land, and it's hers. But she built the house in the 70s, so the house isn't old or anything, and there's no traumatic stuff that actually happened on the land itself, other than Native Americans lived there at one time before it was farmland. But she was claiming that she was seeing shadow figures, and that the haunting was leading her husbands to be sick. When I was on the case, she was on her third husband. Her third husband was on hospice and dying, and she was blaming that on whatever paranormal entity was haunting her home. On top of that, she lost 3 children. And there's another thing, threes were seen a lot around her. But, I talked to her a couple times, and finally, there's only so much you can do to help a person who is in this state. She was very depressed. She was in such a state that she really needed to get counseling. There was no way anybody from the outside could help her unless she decides to get that help, right? And I feel like it's the same with a lot of these cases. There's only so much a person can do, but you're going to have to decide, are you going to stand up and get the healing or get the counseling or remove yourself from the situation?
I mean, that's so true. And, even at the very most basic level, you have to ask for the help when it comes, if you think that there is any sort of other entity involved, of whether demonic or whatever. You have to be the one to ask for the help. You can't expect a priest or a demonologist or whatever to just be like, oh, it looks like you need help, I want to help you. They have to take, at the very least, the first step to identify that they need help.
Well, the other side of it too, from the paranormal investigator side, I feel like we're not doing a good job as investigators either in providing help to clients. What we're doing as in pulp culture is we're going in, we're gathering evidence, and then we're leaving that family. We're not going back. We're too concerned about making TV shows and our YouTube shows or whatever it is people want to do with that evidence. So that's the other side of it. I feel like that we're missing.
It is. I think that's a broad stroke, if I may, because I don't think everyone's that way.
No, not everybody.
But I take your point. Your point does stand. But I mean, and that's the problem, and that's also the problem, is that people are seeing us all as one kind of group. And yes, it does feel like, and I've said this before too, that when I look at my feed, on Facebook. Not that that's the scientific method of anything, but everybody on there is all work. All they want to do is they want to have, the events, and they want to meet, their cliques and the events, and want to be able to go to the places that everyone goes to for investigations and meet celebrities and stuff. And I don't see hardly anyone anymore talking about private investigations, private residential, or private any sort of thing. And I understand that doesn't mean it's not happening, that there are confidentialities, but you never even hear anyone even talking about them in broad strokes either.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting.
And maybe I'm talking in broad strokes about that, and maybe it's happening all over the place. But all I ever see is people talking about, like, oh, we're going to get together at such and such a place and investigate. That they investigate all the time, and they're always looking for the darker places to investigate.
Mm-hmm.
And, that I see people posting like, oh, I got, there's a priest there, a spirit priest there that wants me to, and expletive them. And it's like, what on earth is that about? And it's so frustrating to hear that sort of thing, because that is not what this is about. And I will fight anybody on that.
You're exactly right. I feel like that's a big key thing that we're missing in the paranormal, though, is if you really want to help clients and help the field and help people, like, everyone says they want to help people and that's why they're in it.
Mm-hmm.
Then, you would really benefit to look at these cases in a different light. And maybe, technology's good. Don't get me wrong. I love the tech side I've had shows all about tech. I love it. I'm always looking at that stuff. But are we so much engaged in collecting evidence and equipment now that we're kind of missing the spiritual aspects of the paranormal or the counseling aspects? There's just so much more to it that we're not getting to anymore.
I think that is just spot on. And I am somebody who loves the tech side too. And over the past couple of years, I find that I'm taking them away. I mean, my show is called Ghostbox, so a spirit box is a big thing that I still feel very connected to. But you are absolutely right that lift your head up from the screen, right? See what's going on around you, and that biggest tool, and it's always funny when you say it, but you know what I'm going with. The biggest tool is ourselves
right.
for paranormal equipment, and I do get frustrated when people like I don't have a psychic bone in my body. And it's like everyone does. And some people seem to wear that as a badge of honor. Like, oh, I have no psychic abilities whatsoever. That's fine. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do with it. But, maybe think about trying it. You'd be surprised.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like everybody has a little bit of ESP or a little bit of psychic ability. It might not be developed, but everybody is connected to the ether. So...
Now, are you a medium at all? Do you carry these gifts with you?
I do, but I don't like to profess that I am.
It's a big step, isn't it?
It is.
It's a very serious thing, and when I use some of my equipment, like my spirit box, I actually do try to use mediumship with it to bring forward the people I want to speak with, but. If someone said to me, does that mean you're a medium? I'd go and hide under the desk and kind of shiver. It's just because, to your point, that's a big, heavy title that I don't feel, speaking for myself, I am at that stage to be able to be like, yep, that's me, but what you're saying though, is that you have some stuff going on.
Yes. To your point too, I am working with a very well-known psychic medium who he's been to the Finley College. He actually teaches at that college, and he's working with me to do spirit art. I'm an artist, and I'm pretty good at doing the spirit art. But I think the things that there's a lot of people professing that they're mediums right now out there, and I think it's just like the paranormal. It's all about the thrills, and it's more than that. There's a lot of counseling that goes on with the clients that I speak to. There's just a lot more to it. It's not just about reading somebody and then leaving them. There's a lot of crying. I have a lot of clients that cry. The people I do read for, just a lot more to it. One of them actually had to contact somebody in her life to get her counseling. So there's an extra step there. It's not just a, hey, I'm so cool, I can read. There's more to it.
There's a lot more to it, and you're absolutely right. And the thing too that maybe people don't quite understand is simply the fact that a paranormal investigation of helping a person in the private sector can take months. It's not a one night and done. It's not 2 to 3 weeks of going through evidence, presenting, like you said, and then heading out. It's a constant, the whole thing of whatever is there coming back, or the people that you're trying to help, they're not following direction and they themselves are bringing it back accidentally. I mean, there's a lot to it. And then to your point as well, and I think I don't think this could be overstated, the mental side of it, and also the fact that you might interview somebody to see if you can help them, and you realize that they need something else, and you can't just leave them be and be like, well, good luck with that. You have to, you're invested now.
Right. I truly believe that. There was a case that I talk about in the book, and I don't want to go into too much detail either, but this case was drawn to my attention through that show, The Holzer Files.
Oh yeah. Yep.
The episode where I forget where they were actually, but there was a young lady who was being oppressed by a spirit. And of course, it turned out to be that she was drawing this to herself and she had the power to overcome it. And they kind of lead her into that. But the reason they got into that case was from a case that Hans Holzer had in Tyler. And if you read about that case, it's actually really sad, where this entity was oppressing the entire family, but specifically the boy, Andy. Mm-hmm. And I think Hans had lost the ability to communicate with this young man and kind of went his own way. Mm-hmm. Kind of stopped the case. He just, for whatever reason. And years later, it turned out that this boy was still being possessed, even as an older man. He was still being bothered by this entity, and he ends up taking his life. Wow. And if you read further into this case, Hans says that he really regrets this case, that he hasn't done more. And it's interesting that you said that for many different reasons.
It is, because it really hits the nub of what you've been talking about earlier.
Yeah. And I think that the purpose of this book is to try to bring that to light to a lot of the investigators. And, I'm not saying that everybody is just out to collect evidence. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, why are we doing this?
Absolutely.
Take a look at why.
Absolutely. Why don't we do this? Let's go ahead. Let's take another break. There's so much more to talk about. If you have any questions, please put them into the comment section. We're not doing political, folks, so I see that. We're going to delete it. You're listening to Ghostbox Radio on AM 950. Are you one of thousands of individuals who know you have psychic abilities but don't know how to tap into your higher self? Refined Divine is an extremely gifted psychic medium who offers classes that can help you reach your goals. Refined Divine holds classes Monday and Thursday at her 2 locations and via Zoom. Classes consist of manifestation, learning psychic abilities, shadow work, and healing trauma. Refined Divine has helped thousands, and she can help you.
This is Psychic Medium Deb. You can go to refineddivinepsychic.com.
Greg Bakken here. Like you, I love good, fresh, delicious food. So I want to tell you about this treasure in Roseville called Maverick's Real Roast Beef. Maverick's has the best roast beef sandwiches I've ever had. Made fresh every order. Add fries or onion rings dropped in the fryer when ordered, and you have a winning combination. Maverick's Real Roast Beef has a lot more than roast beef, so check out their website, mavericksbeef.com, or check out their restaurant on Lexington in Roseville.
Did you know that spiritual awakening is not all love and light? Surprise! Inner demons, ego deaths, and tower moments are on the horizon. But while life might hand you some harsh lessons, we've got the antidote to soothe your weary soul. Why not try a dragon's blood bath or schedule a Reiki aura repair? With books, herbs, talismans, candles, and more, we put the Shazam in shadow work. Visit Magus Books at 1848 Central Avenue Northeast in Minneapolis or magusbooks.com.
The Tilted Tiki, located in downtown Stillwater, helps you get your tropical tiki vibe on with a large selection of fantastic tasting tiki cocktails served in unique and fun glasses, a menu of delicious food ranging from small bites, craft tacos, sandwiches, and more. Plus, don't forget they have live music Wednesday through Saturday nights. Located in downtown Stillwater, the Tilted Tiki is your tropical relaxation restaurant in Minnesota. Visit thetiltedtiki.com.
Reach your highest level of consciousness and well-being with metamorphosisconnections.com. Metamorphosisconnections.com is an online directory of the best holistic and metaphysical practitioners to help you make your most informed choices. You can search metamorphosisconnections.com for classes, events, wellness and life coaches, plus metaphysical products and shops. You can also search for a wide array of healers from all modalities, including EFT, sound healing, energy healing, light therapy, ancestral healing, shamanic healing, reflexology, past life regressions, hypnotherapy, yoga, and more. And if you're not sure where to start, the search feature on metamorphosisconnections.com is tailored to help both those who know what they are looking for and those who are just starting. Come explore the possibilities for your higher self by visiting metamorphosisconnections.com. Their experienced practitioners can guide both beginners and those that are already on their spiritual journey. That's metamorphosisconnection.com, your link to direct you on your spiritual transformation.
And join me tomorrow on Ghostbox Radio with Greg Bach. And tomorrow is Friday the 13th. You know what that means. We're going to be talking about superstitions. No casual Friday tomorrow. We're talking superstitions. And I have on as a guest author D.R. McElroy, and we're going to be talking about her book on superstitions. It's actually her 5th book on it. I guess there's a lot of them out there worldwide, and there's so much to cover in this, and I'm really looking forward to that conversation. So we will definitely be doing that tomorrow. And before we get back to our author, C.L. Thomas, today, I do want to just quickly say, I know that with the world climate, things are running and emotions are running extremely high. And this program is meant as a respite from politics. It's meant as a sort of an escape. Not that our subject tonight is necessarily light, but we really try to keep it away from the atrocities and the horrible things that are happening in the world right now. And that this is not a place to post your comments about it. Don't think for a minute that none of us over here don't care about it, but this is really a way for people to step away from it for a second if they want to do so. So I wanted to just say that real fast. And C.L. Thomas, not that what we're talking about is necessarily all that light either, but as far as us in our paranormal world, this is important stuff to talk about.
I think it is. Absolutely.
And I'm happy to hear other people having the same sort of complaints that I've been feeling. I've been talking to my friends about the field, and I'm not saying that the field is a horrible place, the paranormal field. It just gets frustrating because I feel like we've lost sight, at least
Right.
in my blinders, and maybe I'm wrong.
No, you're absolutely right. You know what? To be honest with you, I really enjoy some of those TV shows, but I think we have to be clear as investigators and things like that, the difference between entertainment and real life. I think that's where it's getting lost. Entertainment, it's great. The events, those are great too. I love going to events. Those are fun. But when you're actually investigating for clients and trying to help families and stuff, it's not always fun. There's a lot more to it than just the entertainment side. And I think for whatever reason, we're kind of shifted to one side in the paranormal world. That's all we're seeing anyway. We're not really seeing the other side of it.
I would say so. It used to be back in the day when we're doing the private investigations and stuff. It's the people who are calling us in are the ones who've only watched the TV shows, and that they're throwing the TV stuff at us in terms of what they think it is. It could just be, a faulty light bulb, but they're calling it a demon. But I feel like, but now I feel like it's also the investigators, because they've been brought up on the television.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, to be honest too, back when this situation happened in Nashville, there was only 2 shows on the television, and it wasn't something that was talked about. My roommate spent quite a lot of time trying to find help, and nobody was willing to talk about the paranormal. I think she even went to a Catholic church in Nashville at the time, and they wouldn't even answer her or anything, wouldn't return to phone calls or anything. So that was just 10 years ago.
It has moved pretty quickly. And I was going to say, when you said that she went and talked to the Catholic Church, I was like, I'm sure that didn't go all that well.
No, it did not. But, my point being, though, these TV shows did a good thing because they brought it to the light. A lot more people out there talking about their experiences and are willing to share different things now. Whereas before, it was a very closed thing.
I think so. I do agree with that 100%. It is a lot more people are more comfortable with it than they had been before. I want to kind of switch gears a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about your Small Town Tales podcast, because I like the name of it. What do we hear when we tune into Small Town Tales podcast?
Well, it's a paranormal show. Sometimes I have authors on there. The past year was a lot of paranormal investigators. I'm kind of tapering that off a little bit to get back to folktown lore, more travel things, and the hauntings that surround different travel places and just odd things.
I had created I never followed through with it. I wanted to do a web series called Small Town Ghost Stories. Same sort of, I'm fascinated by that sort of realm, where what lurks in small towns.
There's a lot.
Exactly. And that we don't know about. And, being in Minnesota, there's a ton of small towns, rural towns. There's a lot of superstitious people, as we're talking about that tomorrow. And I don't say that looking down on them. It's just a fact. And I'm a very superstitious person myself. So I just think that there is really, there's something really alluring about that podcast. How long have you been doing that?
About 3 years.
Not bad. It's hard to keep them going, isn't it? Sometimes
it is. That's why it's only once a month, because I can't just keep up with it.
It's tough, isn't it? It's tough. I mean, but it's also rewarding, especially as an artist, as a writer. I know you can identify with this. It's yours. Mm-hmm. This is yours. It's your brand. Everything about this is yours.
Right. Yeah, I do love that. Because I love to create stuff.
And you do you said spirit art.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly is that?
So it's kind of like a reading, where you sit in front of a medium and the medium tells you a spirit that comes through and gives you a message, right? It's the same thing, only it's an artwork. So a person will come, I sit with them. I don't allow them to tell me any information. I don't want to know names, nothing. And I just sit with them quietly for maybe 15 minutes. And then I jot down everything I get from the spirit, whatever spirit comes through. Sometimes it's several, sometimes it's just one, and sometimes it's nothing. It just depends. And then I'm able to sketch what the person looks like, and just different objects will show up. The last one I did was for a friend of mine, and she asked me to do it for. I usually don't do friends or people that are close to me, obviously, because I don't want to be guided in any way with it. But I told her I would do it, and I didn't know this about her. But a young man came through, and I was able to sketch him out. And what I saw was a bunch of like deer horns, and I saw a big oak tree. I saw just several things, and I put it all in there. And then I heard his name, and it looked like a sword or something. And then I heard warlock. And of course, I don't know what any of that means. I just kind of jotted down on the paper on the side of it. And I gave it to her, and she started crying, and she said it was a friend that committed suicide just a few years ago. I had no idea. And this guy was an avid hunter. He was a taxidermist, so that's why I was seeing all of the deer horns and all that kind of stuff. And he practiced magic. That's how she knew him. Was he considered himself a warlock? I guess that's a male witch.
Yeah.
But that's what I do. I'll sketch it out. I don't always necessarily have a message. But I always have like some details around it, even though I don't know what it means.
Right.
So that's the gist of it.
And so you do that. You get message from spirit. You create art from that.
Right.
And yet you're not ready to call yourself a medium.
I just don't like the terminal. I just don't like how it's used, I guess.
Sure. I'm just curious. because I mean, you are getting you're getting some pretty big validations with it. And you know, everyone does what they're comfortable with. I just was very curious about that.
It's interesting because I used to do a lot of walkthroughs for different ghost hunting groups. Like I would go in and tell them what to expect and where to set up, that kind of thing. But I didn't feel like there was enough evidence for it. But now that I'm working in a way where I can get that evidence with different clients, it's just different. It's eye-opening.
I bet it is. I bet it is. Do you have spirits that return to you that weren't necessarily connected to you, but they show up more than the case? Okay.
Yes. For instance, Goldfield, that's in my backyard. You know, it's not too far from Las Vegas.
Oh yeah.
Every time I go through there, I always end up having to stop for one reason or another. Last time I had a flat tire and I had to stop right in front of that Goldfield Hotel.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, long story short though, there's a woman there, a young girl whose spirit first time I saw her all the way across the cemetery, and I went over there, saw her name, and she's not even buried under the right name. There's like this whole story to her, and actually my next book is going to be about her. But she shows up again and again.
Have you investigated inside the Goldfield?
I have, yes.
I've always wanted to. I've been on the outside of it. I've been in Goldfield. I've touched the building. I have pictures of myself in front of it, but I've always wanted to investigate in there and communicate.
It's got a lot going on. I have to be honest, though, it's not as active as what I had expected, you know, just from seeing different shows and things. I tend to pick up more on the outside of the building, and there's a schoolhouse there that is way more active than than the actual hotel. And there's also a private residence that I've done there too. That's pretty haunted.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Because that town just was decimated. I mean, there's nobody. I mean, it's just incredible. And it's sad at the same time. And I was driving down that way. We went past Vegas and we were on our way to Reno, nearby Reno, Virginia City. And I didn't even realize I was going to be running into Goldfield. I mean, it's amazing because you go Goldfield, and if you go further up, it's Mitzpah and the Clown Hotel. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's just like, well, this is quite and Area 51, basically.
Yes. Yep.
That's quite the highway.
That's what I love living here so much. There's just so much stuff out. Just over the weekend, some friends and I went out to look for they call it the Horse Thief Camp. And it's way up in the mountains between this little town called Tecopa and Pahrump. And there's like this little mountain range that goes through there. And this old Spanish trail pretty much follows the path, or the highway, I should say. It's the actual old Spanish trail. Well, if you go off of there in any direction, it goes miles and miles into this wilderness. We tried to find this horse camp, and the story is this Native American band was going up and down the old Spanish trail and was going out. They were killing like Mormons and just different people traveling up and down there and taking their horses and then running up to this camp way up in the mountains because the law wasn't going to chase them that far. Mm-hmm. And they got away with this for quite some time and killed a lot of people in the process. But we went to go look for it over the weekend just to find it. And, the building's still there. But it's stuff like that. You just come across things like that in the middle of the desert.
Absolutely. Now, as we're wrapping up here, your Instagram address again, please. I'm going to put this, for those who want to also scan, I'm going to make you large on the screen there for people who want to scan, but how do they find you on Instagram?
It's author_CL_Thomas.
That's fantastic. And I really appreciate it. Let us know when the book's available and we'll put people your direction. CL Thomas, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Greg, thank you so much for having me.
I hope to have you on again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then tomorrow we're talking superstitions. So join us as we have on DR McElroy. Have a great night, everyone. Take care.